Nothing ever ends. It's only just begun.
What's up, guys? Thanks for stopping by. Tonight we are talking the premiere of Watchmen on HBO, titled It's Summer and We're Running Out of Ice. Just had a chance to watch it tonight, and I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'm not the biggest hardcore fan when it comes to Watchmen, the graphic novel. I haven't really read it. I've seen the movie, and from what I heard, that this show is actually 30 years after the graphic novel ended, and it's not really connected to the movie as much. So leave your comments below, especially my graphic novel readers. Just like to hear your thoughts on how this show connects in some ways to the graphic novel. I know we have a few characters that are in the show, that are in the comic book, that also were in the movie, but I know there's some other things that are in the show that are happening that really make a connection to the comic book, so I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that. But the description of this episode pretty much says it's Angela investigates the attempted murder of a fellow officer, and the lord of a country estate receives an anniversary gift from his loyal servants. Seems a little bit basic, right? Well, that's what happens in this episode, but with everything that happens around it, it seems like we're in a world that we should already be familiar with, and usually those type of shows are the kinds that really intrigue myself and a lot of other people. HBO has a knack for doing this. A lot of their shows start off quite complex, and as you go through the next few episodes, it starts to unravel, and you start to really understand it by the time you get to the finale. Game of Thrones has done this, Westworld has done it, and I see Watchmen being that next show on HBO, and they really know how to pick their shows, and they really have a knack of creating such worlds that really just suck you in. And this is the first episode. It's only the first episode, but it already has taken my interest. I'm already invested in it, and I'm just really interested to see what's going to happen and what answers we're going to be given, because this first episode really, already has a lot of questions that I have no idea how to answer them. But just going by the description, it starts off in a flashback in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. We see this family that we have no idea who they are, and it's during this massacre that's happening in that year. And it's really drawn out. It's like 6 or 7 minutes, and at the time you have no idea why we're seeing this family, but it is kind of cool how they opened it up. It opens up in a silent picture, and you find out the child that is part of that family, he's watching that movie. I thought it was really cool how it opened up like that, but it's really drawn out, and like I said, you have no idea what's happening. All of a sudden we flash forward to the year 2019, which is, it's September, about a month before we are in right now, but it's still a very unfamiliar world. You see that technology is limited. The police force all have masks on. They're not able to reveal their identity due to some incidents that have happened in the past. Society is the only thing that's pretty much remains the same. The society between the police force and the vigilantes, just like how it was in Watchmen before the series started back in the 80s. You can see that there is still this rift between the authorities and between the vigilantes. Now, I won't get too political in regards to this show, but you can tell that there are certain things that they're doing and that it's taking place the same year as ours, and how it reflects towards society that we're facing today. So I thought that was kind of smart. I see what they're trying to do there, and it really plays well in regards to the storyline, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. But if you watch the show, you can really tell that they're trying to say something. They're not really going too far and trying to shove it down our throats saying this is what we think, this is what you should think too, but they do it in a way that it really blends in with the story, that makes it seem, okay, I know what they're trying to say, but they're not really going too far into it. Let's enjoy this still. But anyways, soon after we're in 2019, we see a fellow officer is murdered. And this goes back to my description that I mentioned earlier. And this is what prompts Detective Angela Abar into the scene. And she's also playing a vigilante known as Sister Night. As far as I know, she is playing a character that is newly written for this show. She's not from the graphic novel as far as I'm concerned. But her performance, Regina King, she was perfect for this role. Now keep in mind, there's a big cast for this series. So many actors are in this show that I have read before I even started watching this tonight, and not every single person is in this one episode. This is the type of show where you're going to see different scenarios, different people, different points of view throughout these 9 episodes. So things are going to be going all over the place until it completely makes sense towards the end. So this one is more so more about Regina King's character. And as far as we know about her character, she owns a bakery. She used to be a police officer. She was shot during an event that happened a few years prior, and by night she is a vigilante known as Sister Night. She still works with the police force, and looks like she's trying to stop this group along with the other police, a group called the 7th Cavalry. They're a group of a bunch of other Rorschachs considered to be a white supremacy group. So that is the main fight we're seeing between these two groups, the police force and this white supremacy group. And this seems to be her goal, is what she's trying to go after and try to stop this group. And you see that throughout the episode. Towards the end, they go and infiltrate one of their headquarters that they're at, and that seems to be a big chunk of this episode, but I think it's going to be more than just that as we go through the next few episodes. Now, even though Regina King takes up most of this episode, and she does great in it, we do see other characters along the way. Don Johnson portrays Chief Jude Crawford, and he gives a great performance, and we also get probably one of my favorite characters so far, and that is Ozymandias, played by Jeremy Irons. And I just like it because it's Jeremy Irons that they picked to play him, and I thought that was perfect casting. Not only because he's a great actor and he brings such sophistication to the role, but even though this show is not really directly connected to the movie, more so the graphic novel, if you watch the movie, Matthew Good portrays a younger version of Ozymandias, and they both look almost alike. If you took Matthew Good, and he was actually this person, Ozymandias, 30 years later, he would look just like Jeremy Irons. And with his character, nothing really happens that's really important. It looks like he's just at his mansion, and his loyal servants are giving him a gift, as I mentioned in the description already. And I don't really know why they're showing that. It's maybe to introduce the character, but it kind of gives us a glimpse on where he is at this time of life, being it was 30 so years after we last saw him in the graphic novel. So it's giving us a little insight, but there's more to it than just what we're seeing. This is a guy that has something up his sleeve, and this is another reason why Jeremy Irons is the best at this role, because he's always done great at the villainous type of roles. As far as the show goes, technically speaking, this is another thing that HBO is really good at. They're good at having deep, complex characters, complex storylines, but they're also good at their visual aspects and the score and just everything that makes the show visually so great. And the visual in this show really complements all the other shows that we've seen on HBO. You have great cinematography, seamless editing, the costume design is great, the score is mesmerizing, I loved it, and it still feels like what it felt like watching the movie, even though I've said it many times that there's not really any connection between the film and this series. It still has that feel of you're in this alternate timeline. It's our world, it's 2019, but it's not the world we're living in, and it just really takes you in with everything that we're watching. So it's a really attractive looking show to watch, but to have it have a really deep, complex storyline just makes it even better. But when I say complex, I'm not kidding. There are certain things that I'm still confused by. There's squid raining from the skies. All the policemen, they have the masks on, and you have a certain understanding of why they're wearing them, but you really want to see what brought about this, because there is something that happened years prior to this that made them have to hide their identity from others, and that's what happened to Angela, to why she quit the force, because she was almost killed because someone knew what she looked like. So there are a lot of questions on why things are happening the way they are. Why is this world like that? And that goes back to what I was saying, that these type of shows on HBO, they open up in a world that we're supposed to be familiar with, but we're okay with that, because as we go along, we're going to get more answers, and I bet by this finale, we're going to have a majority of all the answers, but we're probably going to have a whole bunch of new questions. And it looks like our first question at the end of this episode, the big one, is why there's an old man in a wheelchair, played by Louis Gossett Jr. He's portraying a man named Will Reeves, and he's there with Don Johnson hanging from a tree. Angela finds them, and she asks the question, how could you do that? You're an old man. How do you have the ability to hang this person? And it looks like this old man is the same boy that we saw back in the flashback in 1921, and he does say he's a little bit over 100 years old, and I believe this was all said in the preview after the credits. If you take a look at the end, they'll show what's to come for the next few episodes, and it just asks the question, how did he do it? So this was something we'll definitely see the answer to later on, but I feel at the end of every episode we're going to see something that we're going to have no idea how it happened that way, But later on, we're going to start to understand it as it starts to unravel. But guys, I appreciate it. Thank you for hearing me out, hearing my thoughts on this. Tell me in the comments below, once again, what did you think about this episode? And for you graphic novel lovers, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. How does it connect to the graphic novel? Coming from somebody like me who's not really too familiar with it, I'd like to hear your thoughts especially. But don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe to hear more on the upcoming episodes, movies, and more, or anything is possible.